Chapter 7. Oh, my freaking goddess. Maya looked up from her history textbook. She'd been trying to fit in some extra homework before classes. She was still behind due to her week at the Open and her impressive social. Cleo's outburst caused her to lose her place in her reading, but that wasn't important. A stage 5 freak-out was happening on the other side of the dorm room. I'm on the wall. Cleo's hands waved wildly toward her computer screen. I'm on the freaking wall. Oh, Cleo, Maya said. I'm so sorry. The wall was a gossip site that followed all the hottest of the hot in movies, TV, and music. Occasionally a sports celeb made it into the site, like that one time Maya found herself providing a little extra color for a story about Nicole. She wasn't looking forward to repeating that experience. Whatever, Cleo said. Oh, I know I'm supposed to be above these gossip rags, but it's totally different when you see a picture of yourself in an article that's already gotten thousands and thousands of page views. That's pretty sweet. I'm on the freaking wall. Maya forced a smile. Well, that's wonderful, Cleo. About time someone noticed your accomplishments. You deserve some press. Thanks, Cleo said. But the article's not about me. I'm just in the background of the picture. My name isn't even mentioned. Then what? A feeling of dread crept over Maya as she recalled those flashing cameras from the night before. She'd been so naive to wave at them thinking the photographers were on the prowl for a real celebrity. Please tell me it's an article about a hot new soccer star from Rio. Oh no, Cleo said. This one is about American sports royalty. The football prince and his new lady love. Maya didn't want to see the article, but she had to find out what people were writing about her. Homework was forgotten for the moment, and probably for the rest of the day. She reluctantly took the long, difficult steps across the room to look at the screen of Cleo's computer. A big picture of Maya and Travis walking arm in arm out of 360 was at the top of the page. Cleo and Renee were in the background. What looked to be Diego's arm made it into the picture as well. There was no doubt who the stars of the article were by the way the camera was angled for maximum couple etude. And if there was any doubt, the article below it dashed that right away, beginning with the headline. Football prince with tennis pauper. Ouch. The entire article seemed to be created solely around the photo. The writer managed to find a surprising amount of information about Maya, particularly that she was a scholarship student at the academy. It made a lot of assumptions from that fact alone, building a Romeo and Juliet type of story about two teens from different worlds. Maya's family had always struggled with money, but she never thought of herself as poor. But calling her lover middle class didn't get page views, apparently. That's so dumb, Maya said. Romeo and Juliet were both rich. So not the point, Maya, Cleo said. You've gone mainstream media. I wouldn't be surprised if more agents started jumping out from behind bushes to offer you representation on the way to class. Cleo's wild imagination aside, Maya knew that she should be excited. This was part of what she'd been dreaming of for years. Success and fame went hand in hand. It just felt cheaper since she hadn't even had any real success yet. None of that really bothered her. This was the second time the world linked her with a rich brother she wasn't currently dating. She didn't like that people she'd never met were investing page space in stories, putting them together. She was especially bothered to see that complete strangers were already commenting on in beneath the article. But she was particularly concerned about Jake. The morning turned out to be an exact replica of the first time Maya appeared on the wall. Total strangers smiled at her and waved hello as she made her way across campus. More people congratulated her about the article than had about the Open. It was as if being on the wall was somehow a better accomplishment than a good game at a mid-level tournament. That said a lot about priorities at the academy. It was all a little much for Maya to deal with. She was glad that she had a practice match scheduled on the court. There was no better way to clear her head than by smashing that small rubber ball at an opponent on the other side of the net. It was her first real practice since the tournament and Maya was on fire. Her legs were fully functional once again, no pain, no strain, and nothing got past her. Not a slice, not a lob, nothing. Maya was all over the court. If the ball dropped short of the net, Maya was there. A high, overhead shot. No problem. Every single time she slammed it back with force. Her mind was clear of everything but the ball. Maya's sparring partner, Lindsay Jacobs, hopped the net and was standing in front of Maya before she even realized the match was over. "That was incredible," Lindsay said. "Normally I hate to lose. I mean, who doesn't hate to lose? But you creamed me. On the bright side, I can now say the girl who held her own against Donata Zayacova punished me in our game." "What?" Maya didn't even know what Lindsay was saying as the girl continued to ramble on about everything under the Florida sun. It came out so rushed, like she was racing to get in everything she could before Maya left. All Maya could make out was blah blah blah, story on the wall. Was this what Maya sounded like when she first met Nicole? But Maya had known Lindsay for weeks now. They'd grabbed frozen yogurts after practice together a couple times. She never talked like that before. "I mean, you squashed me," Lindsay continued. "You scored point after point, and I was stuck on laugh." "What?" Stuck on laugh was such a funny little phrase, but Lindsay was right. She hadn't scored a single point. Maya hadn't even noticed, just like she hadn't noticed the small crowd of classmates that had gathered to watch their game, that were still hanging by the other side of the fence. Suddenly, all the million things that had been crowding Maya's mind came flooding back. Jordan, Travis, Jake, the wall, everything. It didn't help that Lindsay wouldn't shut up. "Thank you," Maya said, when she just wanted to tell Lindsay to get over it. Maya was hyper aware that she had to be kind even though she had an overwhelming desire to get out of there. She didn't want anyone confusing her with Nicole. After enduring a few more gushing tributes, Maya excused herself as politely as she could and left the court. She wanted to be alone, but she needed something to drink. Water wouldn't be enough to restock the electrolytes she'd lost in that game. She knew she should get away from the area, but nothing would quench her thirst like one of the energy drinks they served at the cafe beside the courts, aptly named Slice. Heads turned to see who'd come into the coffee, and everyone lingered a bit longer than usual when they saw it was Maya. While all the attention in the place was aimed at Maya, she was focused on someone else, Nicole. Oddly, the most popular girl at school sat alone, hunched over like she didn't want to be disturbed. Nicole must have spent some time cultivating that pose of casual indifference. It was rare to see her without a pack of admirers. Maya discreetly eyed Nicole. The tennis star held her icy drink against the same wrist she'd nursed while she put makeup on after her match. Nicole was casual about it. The drink just seemed to be resting there. She certainly didn't look like she was icing her wrist. But to Maya it was as bright as a neon sign on a dark country road. It had been days since the tournament, and she was still in pain. That wasn't good. Nicole raised her drink and their eyes met. Without a word, Nicole slammed down her cup and stood, making a quick exit. She wasn't embarrassed or ashamed. She was mad. Maya knew her secret, and it was going to cost her. Maya sat with her drink at a table in the corner, doing her best to adopt Nicole's unwelcoming pose. The last thing she wanted was for anyone to think she was like her former idol, but she had to admit it worked. Everyone backed off, which gave her some time to consider what to do about Nicole. It was crazy that Nicole hadn't seen a doctor about her wrist. That much was obvious since it wasn't wrapped and cold rings weren't exactly the best way to ice an injury. But why? The next major tournament was weeks away. She had plenty of time to heal. If anything, Nicole could use the injury as an excuse for why she hadn't played that well against Donna. Bloggers still gave her a hard time for not crushing Donna. It was a completely unfair accusation, but Nicole was never afraid to milk the media for attention. An injury would be the perfect way to change the story. Before coming to the academy, Maya never thought of ways to change the story. This wasn't exactly the kind of education she'd expected to receive at the school. But it was certainly useful, especially if Maya kept winding up on the wall. She had to tell Jordan. No one else was closer to Nicole. The agent could always pretend that she noticed some of the same things Maya had. Nicole had to be showing all kinds of signs that someone with Jordan's experience would be able to flag. As the answer came to Maya, Jordan conveniently did as well. A warm blast of air announced the cafe door opening again. The agent came in and made a beeline for Maya, ignoring her body language. Since it was Nicole's pose to begin with, Maya suspected that Jordan had a lot of practice with it. Maya had always been a rip-off of the Band Aid kind of girl. As soon as she invited Jordan to sit with her, she got right to the point. I need to talk to you about Nicole. I suspected you might, Jordan said, surprising Maya. I realize you two aren't best friends, but you're both professionals now. You won't be the first clients I've had who didn't get along. This is business, Maya, not high school. No, Maya said. It's not that, although that subject also bothered her. It was kind of weird for Jordan to say something like that while they sat in the middle of a high school. Sure, it was a high school with manicured grounds, Olympic-style training facilities, and a mile's worth of shops and cafes, but a high school nonetheless. You have nothing to worry about, Jordan insisted. I don't play favorites, and I don't pit my clients against one another. You and Nicole are two completely different personalities. I will set up with opportunities befitting of those personalities. That was certainly nice to hear, but seriously, if Jordan wasn't going to let her get a word in edgewise, Maya might have to go with another agent. She needed someone she could work with, not someone who would steamroll over her. But I'm not here to discuss Nicole, Jordan said. But I have an offer for you. Jordan continued to stumble away. Well, not an offer per se, but a potential offer. You've heard about Esteban's new line of designer sportswear, right? No. Maya had heard of Esteban, of course. He designed half of the dresses on the Oscars red carpet, but Maya didn't follow fashion news enough to know what he was currently working on. Oh, well, it has been kind of hush-hush, Jordan said. Anyway, that ad agency working with Esteban is in need of a fresh-faced sporting model for the ad campaign. Your name came up when I was speaking with my contact this morning. I suspect it had something to do with that piece on the wall. Good placement, by the way. Did you do that? Did I do what? Tip of the photogs that you'd be at that club with Travis. No, Maya didn't even know how to get in touch with a photog. Jordan slapped a hand down on the table. Great, that means you're happening organically. Love that. Esteban will too. He's a little on the eccentric side, but you won't meet him till later. First there's the go see. Go see? Jordan picked up her phone and started texting. Maya had hated when people did that. They just want to take a look at you. Maybe get a few test shots. Go to this address tomorrow after class. They're expecting you at 4. Maya's cell phone buzzed in her purse. She didn't normally check her texts in the middle of a conversation, but she had a feeling that buzz had something to do with the address Jordan had mentioned. She was right, Jordan had texted her, but how had the agent gotten her phone number? Jordan was out of her seat before Maya could even formulate a full question. Sorry about the hit and run, but I'm working a deal for... Well, I can tell you. She giggled like she'd already said too much. It was awkward and completely fake, but Maya appreciated the attempt. I know I just throw a lot of you, Jordan said, but I wouldn't do that if I didn't think you could handle it. And don't feel like you have to go with me just because I found this opportunity for you. Consider it a gift in contemplation of a future relationship. If you decide you'd be a better fit with another agent, just remember to thank me at the CNC Awards show when you've voted Player of the Year. Talk more later. Bye, Maya said to the empty spot that Jordan had already left behind. Chapter 8. Maya tried to get into her homework, but she couldn't concentrate. Her mind was still reeling from her conversation with Jordan, and Cleo couldn't get off the topic either. It's probably part of her pitch, Cleo said as she painted her nails alternately black and grey. She comes in, drops off a huge opportunity, and then disappears before you can think or ask a question. As long as she keeps moving, she keeps you on your toes. Like a shark, Maya said. They have to keep moving or they die. Probably, Cleo agreed. Just watch out she doesn't get you in her teeth. You think she could be out to get me? Like Nicole pat her up to this? No, Cleo said. She's a sports agent. She knows a good deal when she sees one. You, my friend, are a good deal. At least you are this week. She got the inside track because she knows you. A few more articles on the wall and another tournament will bring her competition out of the woodwork. The Cyborn Cup is still a while away. She's not going to hold out that long. Maya had signed up for the tournament first thing Monday morning. If Donata Zayatova said they should be there, that was enough for Maya. No, She's going to force a decision before that, Cleo said. In the meantime, she's giving you a freebie. That doesn't happen, like, ever. Take it, see how it goes. Yeah, but if I book the shoot, I feel like I owe her, Maya said. Like I have to sign with her. Cleo shrugged. Maybe not. If you're chosen as the face of Esteban's new sportswear line, that will get your name out there faster than the cup. You could start fielding offers as early as next week. Maya didn't even want to think about that. She'd been working on her tennis game since she was 7. That kind of success she was ready for. This other side to the business was completely foreign to her. She definitely needed someone with more experience on her side. But was Jordan Cromwell that person? Maya still needed to catch up on her homework, but as soon as she woke her laptop, she somehow found herself on the internet. She wanted to know more about Jordan. All she had on the woman so far was her relationship with Nicole, and that wasn't good indicator of anything. Maya typed Jordan's name into a Google search and hit the mother load. Jordan was even bigger than Maya suspected. Only 2 of the hits on the first page were tied to Nicole. Jordan represented athletes across all sports. The majority of Jordan's clients were female sports features. Maya liked that. Women didn't generally make the same kind of money as men in sports, so it was nice to know someone as successful as Jordan was still focused on female clients. At the same time, Maya was concerned that she'd be competing with Jordan's other clients for the same jobs. Jordan was just one part of a large sports agency. She'd be Maya's point person, but she also oversaw a team of agents that specialized in different fields. Jordan was the ultimate deal maker, but the junior agents did the legwork. There were agents for modeling gigs, sneaker endorsements, and even reality shows. They set the clients up, the Jordan would knock them out of the park. It felt a bit like a conveyor belt to Maya. She'd be just another product at a big agency like that. What she gained in the power of a team, she would lose in the personal touch. That mattered to her. After pages and pages of searches, Maya was even more confused than she'd been when she started. This was the real world. She had to make a decision that could impact the rest of her life. And then she had to finish her chemistry homework. But first, she typed her own name into the Google search. Google roulette was a dangerous pastime. Maya started this game when her first picture went up on the wall a couple of weeks back. She never knew when she'd come across a link that she'd rather not see. Like that girl on Twitter a few weeks ago who had a crush on Jake Reed and was writing horrible things about Maya. Hart wasn't exactly a unique last name. It was kind of disappointing the first few times she played it to find that so many other Maya Harts come up before her. It wasn't like that anymore. Every Maya Hart on the first page of the search was her. There were articles about her match against Donna, photos of her at the press conference, and, of course, a ton of stuff about her and Travis at 360. Most of it was nice. Some of it was not. One thing in particular was really, really bad. Cleo looked up from her nails. What? Maya wanted to say, nothing, but that wouldn't be fair to Cleo. She had to know. Grant Adams is writing about you again. Cleo looked worried. What more could he possibly have to write about me? Savannah was days ago. Not Savannah, a little closer, a lot more recent. What? The springs on Cleo's bed were still squeaking when she reached Maya and elbowed her out of the way to read the article. This one had very little to do with golf and everything to do with that one picture on the wall with Cleo in the background. Party girl? He's calling me a party girl? I don't even go to parties unless you and Renee drag me there. I'm so sorry, Maya said. If people hadn't been taking pictures of her, no one would have even known Cleo was out of the club. I'm not sorry, I'm mad. This bozo thinks he can get away with this. Cleo's fingers taped across the keyboard. Even if her anger, she was careful not to get nail polish on the keys. Cleo, what are you doing? Telling him what I think about some old man picking on a teenage girl. Cleo, stop. You can't do that. Her fingers never slowed. Maya read the comments as Cleo wrote. It was actually a pretty good takedown. The wording was calm and reasoned, no matter how emotional Cleo's fast fingers made it seem. But Cleo getting involved was going to turn it into a big deal. Cleo, too late. She posted the comment. Don't worry, it's anonymous. Maya confirmed that the comment had gone up with Anonymous as a writer, but they still wasn't so sure it was a great idea. These things had a way of spiraling out of control. In the second since Cleo posted, there was already one response to Cleo's comment. Maya had to grab Cleo to keep her from writing back, smearing nail polish all over both their hands. Maya tried to keep her mind on chemistry, but her computer somehow kept flipping back to Cleo's article. Cleo's single comment had started a flame war with people agreeing with and attacking Grant Adams for going after a teenage girl. Thankfully, Cleo had stayed out of it since posting her initial comment. She was back on her bed fixing her nails, but Maya was pretty sure the article had an impact on Cleo since she'd been working on the same finger for the past 10 minutes. Pounding on the dorm room door made them both jump. It was loud and intense, the kind of banging that usually meant the building was on fire or some other catastrophe had happened. Maya, Cleo, let me in, Renee pleaded. Maya flew to the door and opened it, panicked that something major had happened. She was surprised to see Renee casually leaning against the doorframe, as if she hadn't just been trying to break down their door. Hey, how it's going? Maya shared a confused look with Cleo. Fine, and you? Renee slipped into the room. Oh, you know, nothing exciting. Thought I'd stop by and say hi. Cleo rolled her eyes. Slamming it in the dorms twice in 1 week? Nice try. What's wrong? Aren't you supposed to be on a date with Diego? Maya asked. She hadn't been surprised that either of her friends had moved that fast, but it was a shock that the evening had ended so early. It was barely 9. Renee was unusually quiet. That bad? Cleo sat beside Renee on Maya's bed, blowing on her fingernails to dry them faster. It was the worst date I've ever been on, and I've gone off a lot of dates. Maya sat on the other side of Renee. Tell. Renee sighed. Okay, so Diego's new to the city, right? I told him I was going to take him out on the town and show him the sights. I used my dad's name to get us into Violetta. I mean, that's got to be useful for something, and that is like the hottest new restaurant in the city. It started out fine, but that banter thing we had going on at the club the other night wasn't there. Seriously, by the appetizer, we were pretty much sitting in silence. So I figured Italian isn't his thing, she continued. We hit up that fancy chocolate dulce next for dessert. I mean, What guy says no to dessert? But I guess he's on some strict diet on something because he didn't touch the huge slice of caramel chocolate cake we got. And you know I wasn't eating it either, so it sat there between us while we stared at it. Then he took me home and didn't even want to come in, and Nicole was totally out for the night. I don't know what I did wrong, I mean me, at a loss for words with a guy. What's that about? Maya shared a look with Cleo behind Rene's back. Maya knew exactly what was wrong. Sounds like you might have been trying too hard, she suggested. Travis did the same thing on our first date. Diego's not used to fine dining and chocolaters. Trying too hard? I wasn't trying anything. That's a typical date for me. Okay, I did pay, but that's only because it was my idea. And it was on your parents' cards, Cleo suggested. Exactly. Maya shared another glance with Cleo behind Rene's back. Rene, you know what kind of background Diego comes from, right? Oh, I get that, Rene said. I can deal with a guy who's weird about me paying. I can usually play that stuff off, but no guy has ever ended the night with me before. I'm the one who tells him when it's over. That's not even the worst part. Maya was officially confused. What is? Rene let out another deep sigh. She wasn't often a drama queen, but her royal act was in overdrive. I care. Okay? Maya and Cleo said in unison. I don't usually care, Renee said. I've had bad dates before. And okay, this was like the worst of the worst. But usually I just chalk it up to the guy and move on. Girls, I'm not moving on. I want to know what I did wrong. I want to fix it. I want to go out with him again even though I might come out of a second date looking even more pathetic. The final look Maya shared with Cleo behind Renee's back had them both smiling. They didn't enjoy taking pleasure in their friend's pain, but it was kind of nice to see the most confident one of the trio with a slight crack in her cool demeanor. That's not a bad thing, Maya said. It means you like him. Like you like him, Cleo added. You like him a lot, Maya continued in a sing-songy voice. Oh my God, Rene said. I think I do. Chapter 9. Maya was no stranger to pain. In the years she'd been playing tennis, she suffered through blisters, strains, sprains, and more serious injuries, and from her time on the court. None of that pain compared to the agony of wearing a pair of Ottaviano shoes. They were the most uncomfortable footwear she'd ever encountered, including the walking brace she had to wear for a month in 7th grade. Maya sat in the empty lobby of the creative core at agency, dressed entirely in borrowed clothes. She had developed such a pattern of borrowing Renee's clothes that she considered offering to pay rent. Renee had great taste and was much more knowledgeable about this world. Maya had wanted to dress in Esteban from head to toe, but Renee stopped her. The famous designer's labels filled Renee's closet, but she wouldn't let her friend take any of it. Too obvious, she'd said. Once Renee was done with her, Maya was outfitted in a Michael Kors dress, a Cartier tank watch, a Chanel bag, and those hideously uncomfortable but ultimately gorgeous heels. Only then did Renee reach back into her closet atop of the look with an Esteban scarf that complemented the outfit perfectly. The one outfit costs more than Maya's wardrobe budget for the whole year, but she looked good sitting in that lobby. If only someone other than the receptionist would see her in it. Maya had been waiting for an hour, with no sign she was going to be seen anytime soon. She'd be annoyed, but she was too busy trying not to throw up. They never keep Nicole King waiting this long, she told herself. Nicole would never put up with it. She'd have been gone long ago. Maya considered getting up and walking out. Since she was effectively a nobody, there was no chance she'd book the job, but it would send a message. My heart doesn't wait for anyone. She'd never do something like that, but it was fun to imagine. The shadow that suddenly fell over her told her she didn't need to think about it anymore. She put on her brightest smile and raised her head. "What are you doing here?" Travis' smile was as bright as her own. "Wow, that was not the greeting I expected." "Sorry," Maya sputtered. "But what are you doing here? Did Jordan send you for moral support?" Travis slid in next to her on the leather bench. "What do you need moral support for? You're going to be great." "Thank you. But why are you here?" "I'm up for the ep2, he said. "Jordan mentioned it to Dad after she told you about it. They're looking for a girl and a guy for the campaign. He arranged it for me. I didn't say anything because I wanted to surprise you when you got out of the audition. How did it go?" "It hasn't gone yet," she said. "I'm still waiting." "Really? Wow. That's incredibly unprofessional. Let me check in and see if we can do something about that." Travis stood back up. "Travis, no." He shook her off. "It's okay, Maya. I'm not going to cause a scene. I'm just going to let them know I'm here." Maya watched as Travis sauntered away. Questions flooded her mind as the old doubts came back in. Was Travis using her for this opportunity? In that was their friendship was about? She worried that there were already plans for them to be the next big media couple. Traya? Mavis? There was no doubt in her mind that Niles liked them together for that reason, but Travis was still an unknown. He had as much right to try out for the campaign as she did. And it wasn't like they'd be competing against each other. It was kind of nice to have his friendly face around. Even looking at him from behind, Maya could tell he was flashing that bright red smile on his walk to the reception desk. She shouldn't hear what he said to the receptionist, but the woman looked a lot happier than she had the entire time Maya sat in the lobby. Maya envied his charm. She feared it as well. The receptionist picked up her phone and made a quick call while Travis returned to Maya. By the time he'd reached the leather bench, a door to the right of the reception desk opened and a frantic-looking man hurried out. He introduced himself simply as Stephen and told them to follow him. "I'm so sorry we kept you waiting, Miss Hart," Stephen said, "and thank you for coming by too, Mr. Reed. We had a minor crisis this afternoon, but it's been resolved. Since we're at the end of the day, I hope you two won't mind sharing the meeting." "Not a problem," Travis said. "We're all friends." "Fine with me," Maya agreed. So far, their friendship was coming in handy. "That's great, Maya," Steven said as the camera flashed away. "Now try for a smile that's a little less strained." Maya relaxed her smile as much as she could. Her face didn't feel strained to her. The rest of her body, however, was an uncoordinated mess. She really wished that she'd worn her own clothing. It might not have looked as good at Renee's, but she would have been more comfortable. The problem began at the shoes. then worked its way up to include everything else she had on. Maya simply didn't know how to move in the outfit. It was easy to blame the clothes, but the truth was it was the camera, and all the people behind the camera. Steven, who she'd come to learn was an executive assistant, worked the camera for the test shots. He was friendly enough, but his frantic nature did nothing to calm her nerves, no matter how soothing his words. Steven's boss and a half-dozen agency executives sat at a long table behind Steven, whispering to one another while she paused. The initial interview had gone well. With Travis by her side, it was more like a casual conversation. They were looking for fresh faces, which Maya was happy to learn just meant amateurs. Models didn't come much more amateur than her. The executives had been engaging when they talked about Maya's recent tournament and the buzz about Travis on the field. Although Maya was Maya through the entire discussion, they kept calling Travis Reed. It wasn't unusual to call a football player by his last name, but it sounded weird since they never called her Hart. Maya stopped going over the interview in her head and tried to focus on the posing. Steven continued to snap away while he gave instructions. Try to look like you having, fun. Maya tried, but this was the least fun she'd had in her life. Every pose felt faker than the rest, balancing on heels with one arm out toward the camera, and a seductive expression on her face didn't exactly scream, ready to hit the courts. I think we're good. One of the executives said finally. Maya thanked everyone, then sat in an empty seat beside Travis on the side of the room. Your turn, she said quietly to him through a forced smile. Don't know that I'll be able to beat that, but I'll do my best. Flatterer, she said. Lying flatterer. He patted her on the cheek. Just wait to see how bad I can do. Travis was actually pretty good at modeling. His poses came across naturally. He seemed comfortable in front of the camera. It made sense since he'd grown up in the public eye. He was born at the height of Neil's career, when the media was interested in every aspect of the superstar's life. A simple Google search netted enough pictures of Niles and his children to make a scrapbook for each year of the boy's lives. Maya was glad to be off to the side of the room. With Steven positioned between her and Travis, she had a pretty good view of what the executive saw. She was also close enough to hear a whisper that came out a bit louder than one executive probably anticipated. Reed's got a good look, but there's nothing behind the eyes. The two executives on either side of the bad whisperer nodded in agreement. Maya tried to see what they meant, but she didn't have a clue. Travis' eyes looked like they always did, hazel with tiny flecks of green and perfectly adorable. She shook herself out of it. That wasn't the way friends thought about each other. Maya felt like she'd been up there for hours, but Travis only went a few minutes before one of the nameless execs said, Thanks, Reed. You can sit back down beside Maya. Thanks. Travis did as instructed. You were great, Maya said with complete honesty. She chose to leave out what she'd overheard. It wouldn't help him any to know about it. Now you're the liar. He playfully swatted her on the nose. That's what we're looking for, the loud whispering executive said. Maya was surprised to find everyone in the room looking right at them. Could you two take some shots together? Another executive asked. Give us some of that chemistry on display in that photo on the wall. Maya didn't know what the woman was talking about. When she looked at the picture on the wall, all she saw was herself and her friends walking out of a club. The rest of it had been manufactured by whoever had written the article. But if chemistry would get her the job, she'd do what she could. It wasn't like being intimate with Travis was that hard to do. Travis stood first and held out a hand to Maya. You ready for this? Maya took his hand. Guess I can't screw it up any worse. That's that positive attitude I love. They both smiled as they walked in front of Steven and his camera. For the first time, Maya understood what the amateur photographer had said earlier. The smile felt completely genuine. Let's start with, oh, that's good. Steven's camera clicked away. Maya wasn't sure what was good about it. She and Travis were just smiling and looking at each other. They both played into it, smiling wider and suddenly laughing for no reason at all. Let's see some smolder. One of the executives suggested. Maya and Travis let out one last laugh. How were they supposed to be serious with directions like that? Travis raised his eyebrows in a silent stare. She winked in turn to accept. The laughter ended. This part was easy. Maya just remembered the first time she'd seen Travis. How he'd come to her rescue when his dad was about to kick her out of school. What he looked like shirtless by the tennis courts later, before she'd grown suspicious of his intentions, before her feelings got all confused. Maya didn't feel like the smolder. What she felt was warm and sweet, not hot and passionate, but it was deeper than friendship. She wanted to cover him in tiny kisses, not high fives and fist bumps. As the camera continued to click, their hands explored each other's bodies, always aware that they weren't alone, but more intimate than they'd normally be in a public setting. They had to sell that image of they wanted the job. But this was more than just a chance at a gig. This was something. Finally, Maya understood what the executive had been talking about in seeing in behind Travis' eyes. She saw something in there now, beyond the hazel with the green flecks. She saw the same thing she knew he saw in hers. They were never going to be just friends. Where was Cleo when Maya needed for? Or Renee for that matter? Travis had been kind enough to give her a ride back to campus so she didn't have to take the bus. The whole drive was awkward and uncomfortable as they both tried to avoid the obvious. There was no better word for it, chemistry between them during the shot. Once they reached the dorm, she practically bolted out of the car to get away from him and tell Cleo everything. But the dorm room was empty and Renee wasn't answering her phone. They were probably at the dining hall, where it was usually too loud to hear most ringtones. Maya thought about going there, but she didn't need praying eyes watching and eavesdropping ears listening in. The ring of her own cell phone cut through her tension. Maya was about to yell into it with relief when she stopped herself. It wasn't Cleo's or Renee's name in the caller ID. It was Jordan's. Hello? Congratulations, Jordan said by way of greeting. You booked the campaign. Maya wasn't sure she'd heard her right. I'm sorry? You got the job. You're the new face of Esteban's line. Seriously? Of all the things that had happened to Maya since she got to the academy, This was the single most impossible to believe. It was anonymous. They emailed your photos over to Esteban and he agreed immediately. They're going to send me the contract tomorrow. Contract? I can look over it for you if you'd like, but I'm going to need a commitment if we're going to go forward of any other jobs. I don't offer freebies to all future clients, but I like you, Maya. If the terms are acceptable, I'll messenger it over along with a formal agreement for us to work together. You can sign the Esteban contract and take some time to look over mine. I'll be in touch. Jordan ended the call before Maya could even say thank you. This seemed to be standard operating procedure with the agent. Get in, get out. Don't leave time for questions. Maya wasn't crazy about that method, but she couldn't argue with the results. She booked her first ad campaign. The sudden pounding on her door was much more intense than Renee's had been the night before. Who is it? Your co-star in the Esteban and campaign. Maya flung open the door and threw herself at Travis. They hooted and hollered as they embraced, drawing girls out from their rooms and into the hall. Cell phones come out as people snapped up the moment for posterity and future postings on the wall. We better get inside. Maya pulled Travis into her room and shut the door before realizing that probably looked a whole lot worse. But she didn't care. She booked her first job. She was going to get paid. Jordan called you, too? Maya asked. Neither of them could sit down. They both had too much energy. No, my dad. He's handling my deals until I get an agent. But he told me you got an offer, too. I turned the car around and came right back to celebrate together. Maya felt horrible. She didn't even think to ask Jordan about Travis. Then again, it wasn't like there had been time to get a word in. Did you get any details? Jordan hardly told me anything. Not at all, Travis said, still beaming. Those will come with the contract. Maya. We're getting contracts. Maya loved to see his reaction to the news. Travis grew up in this world and he was still as excited as she was about it. That made it even better. Maya were going to be in print ads, web banners, billboards. In that moment, the full scope of this campaign fully hit her. Their pictures would be everywhere. Her friends back home would see them. Nicole would have looked at her face anytime she went to Esteban's boutique. And Jake would have to see her with Travis everywhere he went. Chapter 10. I'm going to get you back, Maya. I'm going to get you back. Jake's voice echoed through Maya's sleep-hazy mind as she woke. It wasn't so much a dream as a memory. Jake had sworn that it wasn't over between them, that he wouldn't let it end, but he had. Jake had completely avoided Maya since the day she almost dropped out of the academy. If that was how he defined getting someone back, he had a few things to learn about the English language. It was what she'd wanted, of course. She'd used that alone time to focus on her game, and the results had been impressive. But Travis ultimately ignored her wishes and moved past the dark time. Jake had sworn he was going to do the opposite of what she'd wanted, and then he failed to even do that. There really was no second-guessing him. Jake stayed on her mind as she got up and ready for her day. She worried about how he'd react once word got out about the ad campaign. There was no doubt he'd hear about it. That's how things work in the Reed household. Niles would brag to anyone within the sound of his voice about Travis' new campaign. Maya had to make sure Jake got the news from her. Finding Jake would be a problem. He wasn't big on sticking to schedules. He was rarely where he was supposed to be. That's why Maya was surprised to find him in the weight room by the football field during his regular time for weight training. Jake had his back down on the weight bench with arms up, pushing against a barbell. His chest rose and fell with each rep, muscles straining against the pressure. Maya smiled a greeting at the guy standing over the bench, spotting Jake. He smiled back, but didn't say anything. They both knew better than to distract a person lifting what looked to be Maya's body weight at least. Once Jake reached the final rep, his spotter helped him guide the barbell onto the hooks above him. With the heavy weapon finally out of his hand, Maya felt it was safe to speak. "Hi," she said. "Travis isn't here," he replied. His spotter raised his eyebrows and slipped off without saying a word. "I was looking for you," she said. "You were?" The smile on Jake's face crushed her a little. It was like nothing had happened between them. Her emotions went right back to when they'd been together. "Is it that big of a surprise?" she asked. "A pleasant one," he said as he stood. "I mean to come all the way across campus to search me out. It must be important." "It is," she said as he moved closer. She could feel the heat rising off his body. "Is it about us?" There was hope in his eyes. It killed her to see it there. It made what she'd come to say all that much harder. It also snapped her out of the moment. Maya took a step back. "It is, but it isn't. It's actually about Travis." She now felt a different kind of heat coming from him. "Go on." "Have you heard about the Esteban campaign?" Jake rolled his eyes. "It's all that's been talking about. Travis is going places. This is only the beginning for Travis." "So? Did he mention anyone else?" "No," Jake said, "but he doesn't usually talk about other people when the subject is Travis." Maya took a deep breath. "I'm in the ad, too. We're both in the ad together." Jake didn't say anything, but his eyes did. "I mean, not together. Together. It's not like we went in as a team. It's just sort of happened." Jake shook off the anger in his eyes. He replaced it with a smile like he didn't take any of it seriously. "Yeah, that's how Travis works, isn't it? Things just kind of happen around him. You don't really believe your brother set this up, do you?" Maya asked. Somehow she didn't think they were talking about the ad campaign. "I don't know anymore," Jake said with a shrug. "Travis used to be my best friend. He had my back even when we were competing against each other. I have no clue who he is now. Not so sure about you either." Jake sat back on the bench, turning away from Maya. He pulled the pin out of the barbell so he could add some weight. "But, hey, I'm fine if you are dating. I don't get why you'd be with someone you can trust, but that's your thing." "We're not dating," she said, and Travis apologized. "Not to me." Jake walked away from her, going through the rows of additional weights stacked along the wall. "But it's okay. He doesn't usually apologize when he gets his way these days. I'm used to it." The thing that bothered Maya most wasn't that Jake was twisting everything. It was that he was so blase about it. He could have been talking about his class schedule for next semester. He was usually much more emotional about things that mattered to him. Complete apathy was a long way from screaming that he was going to get her back. "Well, I just wanted to tell you that Travis and I would be working together," Maya said. "Now that you know, I guess there's nothing more to say." "Thanks for coming by," Jake said, pleasantly enough that it landed like a proverbial punch to the gut. He selected a pair of medium-sized weights and brought them back to the bench, making it clear that the conversation wasn't going to distract him from his workout. Maya turned to leave. Either she'd hurt him so badly that he could barely look at her, or he simply didn't care about her anymore. How could that be true? You don't just forget feelings that intense. But if Jake didn't want to be friends, she was open to see what her friendship with Travis could become. Of course, there was another option. She was in a school with some of the finest specimens of physical perfection in the world. She didn't need to contain her options to one family. Maybe she could have her friendship with Travis while she played the field. The academy did have a lot of fields to play on. There were plenty of guys hanging around outside the weight room alone. Someone grabbed Maya before she could fully explore that idea. She was face to frantic face with Renee. "Maya, quick, we're in the middle of a conversation. Laugh." "What?" "Laugh." They both laughed with the most fake-sounding giggles that Maya had ever heard. She was seriously afraid that someone would think they were on drugs. "What's so funny?" Diego asked. Suddenly the insane laughter made sense, at least as much sense as anything in Renee Boy Crazy World did. "Oh, it would be too hard to explain," Renee said. "She's right about that," Maya thought. "So, tonight?" Diego said. Renee jumped right on it. "I was just talking to Maya about it. She loves the idea." That didn't sound good. "You sure?" he asked. "Because we could." "I'm sure." Renee had an edge of panic in her voice. "It's going to be great." "Okay, then," Diego said. "I've got to get to practice, but I can't wait." "Me neither," Renee said. The girls watched him run off. "What's going to be great?" Maya asked. "You, me, Diego, and Travis," Renee said. "A double date." "I'm not dating Travis." "It doesn't have to be a real date," Renee said. "Just a group of friends going out together. I mean, it would be a date for me and Diego, but you guys would just be pretending." "You really think it's a good idea to begin a relationship with a lie?" Maya asked. "We had such a great time the other night at 360, Renee said. "Everything was so easy, but when it was just the two of us, it was, well, I told you how it was. I need you, Maya. Can't you please do this for me?" Renee's eyes pleaded with Maya. "Okay," Maya said, "but you owe me." "Oh, Maya," Renee pulled her friend into a hug, "and I know just how to repay you. I have the most awesome outfit in the world for you to wear. You are going to look hot tonight." That wasn't the kind of repayment Maya had in mind. Then again, she liked the idea of looking for hot for Travis, even though they were just friends. But were they really? Part of her was looking forward to the fake date. So much for Maya's plan to play the field. "I felt like a taste of home," Diego said as they stood in front of the Brazilian buffet. Maya had always wanted to try Brazilian food. Her family didn't go out to eat much. When they did, it was usually to a chain restaurant that offered coupons. "This time it's on me." Diego turned to Maya and Travis as he opened the door. "I mean, Renee's on me. You two are on your own." "No problem," Maya said as the scents of the food pleasantly assaulted her senses. "Now that I've got a job, I can afford to eat out once in a while." She didn't actually have the money yet, but that would come soon enough. Her pay for the ad campaign would be more than enough to cover dinners for the month, buy a new wardrobe, and leave her enough extra cash to send some back home, even after the academy took its contractually obligated percentage. The hostess showed them to a table and started handing out menus, but Diego stopped her. "Nope, we're not ordering off the menu. We're doing the buffet. Start bringing out the courses." The restaurant wasn't like buffets Maya was used to, where she and her parents waited in line at serving stations, ladling out lukewarm, undercooked food. Diego warned them that this was going to be a different experience entirely. It started with a gigantic platter with a colorful assortment of veggies covering some lettuce. They called it a salad, but it was so much more. Maya allowed for a couple of tongues full of vegetables before cutting off the waiter. It looked so delicious, but she wanted to save room for later. "Don't fill yourselves up too much on the salad," Diego said. "There's plenty more food in the bag." Renee quickly stopped the server after one small serving reached her plate. "Thanks. This is delicious," Maya said after her first bite. "It's like an explosion of flavor." She quickly scooped up another, glad that she'd worn her own outfit instead of the one Renee had offered. There was no room for a big meal in anything her friend owned. "Wait till you get to the meats," Diego said. "The spices they use. I hope no one here is a vegetarian." "If I were, I'd quit for the night," Travis said. "That kitchen smells delicious." Renee smiled as she took a small bite of her salad. Her face scrunched up noticeably. "You don't like it?" Diego asked. Her eyes went wide. "Oh, no, it's delicious, but you said you didn't want us to fill up. It's going to be hard to stop." But Renee did stop. Maya noticed that she didn't take another bite of the salad. It wasn't unusual. In the time that they'd been friends, Maya never saw Renee once clear her plate. When the salads were cleared, new plates come out and the fun really began. Waiters carried out more platters with a variety of dishes. They didn't even bother to ask if anyone wanted the food first. They started putting things on the plates until someone stopped them. Maya didn't want to say not to any of it, which was good because they moved much faster than she did. Renee was the only one who could still see her plate by the time the first wave of waitstaff had passed their table. Maya caught Diego eyeing Renee's small portions. He was probably spending more on this dinner than any other meal he'd had in his life. Maya wanted to pull Diego aside and explain that Renee simply didn't eat a lot, but there was really no way to do that without making it into something it wasn't. Renee probably didn't have a full-blown eating disorder, but she did have some messed-up views about food and her body. Of course, if Maya spent all her time in a sport that required her to wear a tight bathing suit in front of hundreds of people, she might have the same issues. "Isn't this better than that stuffy place we went to the other night?" Diego asked Renee. She smiled brightly, turning on the charm. "So much better." Renee punctuated her statement with a small bite of chicken. Diego smiled back at her, but it faltered just a bit when he looked down at her plate again. "It couldn't have been any stuffier than the place Travis took me to on our first date," Maya said, hoping to direct Diego's attention away from the food. "It wasn't that bad," Travis said. Maya just looked at him. "Okay, it was awful," he agreed. "I was trying too hard." "Just a bit," Maya said. "He took me to a private drive-in theater with a movie projected up against a wall and a flood of concession snacks falling out of the glove compartment. Maya recalled the night a bit more fondly than he made it sound. It was actually one of the best dates ever. No one had ever tried that hard for her, misguided as some of it may have been. That was after the Ritz restaurant I brought her to where she couldn't identify a single thing on the menu. Travis added. That's not true, Maya said. I recognize the garden salad. 3 of the 4 people around the table laughed uproariously. Renee smiled, but it was clear she wasn't in on the joke. Sounds like that place we went to the other night, Diego said lightly. I didn't even know what to order. I would have helped you, Renee said shyly. The only other time Maya had seen for so soft-spoken was when she once walked in on a phone call between Renee and her parents. What are you talking about? Diego said, laughing. You didn't eat anything then either. 3 people around the table now got very silent. Diego was the only one who was still smiling. Renee's largely untouched plate suddenly took up a lot of attention. Slowly, a realization washed over Diego. Is there something? Do you eat? Of course I eat, Renee said. I just prefer smaller portions. It takes some work to maintain this girlish feature. Where I'm from, girls come in all different features, Diego said. It was a light comment, but Renee clearly took it harder than he'd meant it. Some of us have to work to look good, Renee said softly. Renee, you are beautiful, Travis said. Diego, tell her she's beautiful. No. Now everyone at the table was silent. Maya was the first to speak. Excuse me? She doesn't need me to tell her that, Diego said. She needs to believe it for herself. So, you don't think I'm beautiful? Winnie asked. I didn't say that, he replied. I just don't think your beauty has anything to do with the amount of food on your plate. He cut into his stick. Maya looked to Travis and shrugged. There was something so final about Diego's last comment that she started eating as well. Travis soon followed, and even Renee started picking at her food once again. She didn't come close to clearing her plate, but she did eat more than Maya recalled ever seeing her eat before. That was a start. Where to now? Travis asked as the valet brought Renee's car around. Of the 2 people in the group with cars, hers was the only one with a backseat. It's your town, Diego said. You tell me. I don't know. I'm kind of tired. Renee grabbed Maya, pulling her over to the driver's side of the car, whispering. All is good. I'm ready to go solo with Diego. Gotcha, Maya said. She got into the backseat with Travis. I'm kind of tired too. Would you all mind if we called it an early evening? I've got a dough practice in the morning. Maya used the one phrase every academy student immediately understood. It ended all discussion without the usual prodding to change her mind. When he patted the top down on the convertible as they rode back to campus, the noise from the wind gave sufficient privacy to the 2 couples since their voices barely traveled to the person beside them. Travis leaned toward Maya so he didn't have to yell, and maybe so he could just be closer. This was nice, Travis said. I'm glad we're friends. Maya rested her hand on top of his on the seat. I am, too. Renee dropped Maya off at the dorm with Travis, who had offered to be a gentleman and walk Maya inside. It made no sense whatsoever since Travis had left his car at Renee's villa and Diego lived in the dorm next door. And yet it made complete sense as Renee drove off with Diego. Since it was after 8, Travis wouldn't be allowed past the lobby. It was clear from the way both of them dragged their feet that they didn't want the night to end. Travis was the first one to acknowledge it. "You look like you got your second wind," he said as they reached the door. Maya nodded. There wasn't more to say since she'd been lying about being tired to give Rennie some cover. "I'm much more awake than I was leaving the restaurant." "Great. I want to show you something. It's my favorite part of the campus." Travis took her hand, pulling her around to the side of the dorm. Maya couldn't imagine that Travis liked about this side of the campus. The villas and the sports complexes were far better. The scholarship dorms weren't exactly slums, but they were the oldest and least interesting buildings on campus. "Right around here," Travis said as they came to the well. "Oh," Maya crinkled her nose. Most students in the dorms hated the well because it looked so out of place. The battered old stone well sat under a large concrete archway in the middle of nowhere. Both the well and the archway were grey and crumbling, serving as a stark contrast to the modern Spanish style of villas on the other side of campus. Travis must have caught her look of confusion. "You know the story about the well, don't you?" "There's a story?" "Oh yeah," Travis said. "Over 100 years ago the land here was all wilderness. The woods ran up to the property of a railroad magnate, some rich guy who owned pretty much half the state. His daughter fell in love with one of the railroad workers." "Travis, if this ends with one or both of them dying tragically..." "Just hear me out." Travis sat her down on the edge of the well. As you already guessed, her father was not happy with the pairing, so he transferred the worker to a whole other part of the country to keep him away from his daughter. And before you say anything, no, he didn't refuse to go. This was a different time. He couldn't afford to find other work. He had to do what his boss told him. "That part I get," she said. Before he left, the workman built this well and the archway for the girl as a symbol of his love. He told her to calm her to think of him and it would be like they were together. At first, the girl couldn't bring herself to visit the well. It hurt too much. But after some time, the pain of missing him was worse than the sadness of this reminder. So she came out here. She sat where you are and sighed his name. A moment later, she was shocked to hear his voice saying hers back. The girl looked around, expecting her love to come out from the trees, but he wasn't there. She called out to him, telling him to show himself. This time, when he answered, she realized his voice was coming from down in the well. He told her that he'd built an exact replica of the well and the archway where he lived and tied the two together through magic. That way, they could always be together even though they were hundreds of miles apart. Maya looked down into the well. "You're making that up." Travis smiled. "I can take credit for the story. Part of the deal when Dad bought this place was that the well could never be demolished. No one knew why, so people have made up stories over the years to explain it. That one's my favorite. So you brought me here to lie to me?" Travis laughed. "No, I brought you here to show you this." He took her by the hand and moved her over to the archway. The stone arch was concave in the middle. Travis placed a hand gently on her cheek, turning her head so it rested beside the concave part in the center of the stone. "Stay like that," he said before jogging over to the other side of the well where the arch came down. "What are you?" Travis put a finger up to his lips. shushing her. Then he pointed to the arch, signaling that she could get back into the position he'd left her in. She did as she was taught, leaning her ear toward the cold concrete. "Maya," Travis' voice whispered from the stone. It sounded like he was leaning right up to her ear. "Travis." She looked back. He was all the way on the other side of the arch, a good 25 feet away. "Shh," his voice whispered. "I can hear you." "That's incredible," she whispered into the stone. "How did you find this place?" "My mom showed it to us when we were kids," he said. "Jake and I used to come here to tell each other our secrets. Back before—" He didn't have to finish the sentence. She knew the rest of it. Back before they stopped being close. Travis and Jake were still friendly, but they weren't close, and that had nothing to do with Maya. "So, what secret did you bring me here to tell me?" she whispered. "That I want to be more than friends." Chapter 11. "Come to the football field." Maya read the text aloud again. "Important. It's so vague yet exciting," Cleo said as they walked down the palm tree-lined pathway. "You're making fun of me, aren't you?" Maya asked. "I'm making fun of teenage intrigue," Cleo clarified. "I can't help it if you're the star of that intrigue." Maya had to laugh. Cleo was right. Things had been pretty intriguing lately. Days had passed since Travis declared that he wanted more than friendship with Maya. Standing in that archway, she'd wanted to say yes right away, but she told him she wasn't ready to make that commitment. She needed time to think about it. Thankfully, both their busy schedules soon got in the way of a follow-up conversation. Maya's postponed schoolwork started to catch up with her, and practices pulled them away from each other. They spent time at the academy exposition, meetings together, but coaches, teachers, and the school's publicity team surrounded them from the moment they walked in the door to the time they left. It wasn't the best setting for a private conversation. Maya still didn't know if she wanted more than friendship with Travis. Part of her did, but not when she thought of Jake. She couldn't imagine telling him she was dating Travis less than a week after she told him that nothing was going on. Then again, considering how indifferent Jake had been about it, that conversation might be a lot easier than she imagined. That bothered her too. She didn't want Jake to be jealous, but a small part of her wouldn't mind if he was. "I'm a horrible, horrible person." "Yes, that you are." "Cleo." "Maya, you haven't done anything wrong." "You're twisting your emotions in knots to make sure you don't do anything wrong. And for what? One guy who may or may not have schemed against you with your archenemy, and another guy who fell into bed with that same enemy 0.5 seconds after he had the slightest reason to doubt you. If anything, you are a nicer person than either of these guys deserves." Cleo's point didn't stop Maya from worrying. It did stop her from complaining about her problems, though. Cleo had her own issues. Grant Adams had stepped up his attacks on her, and, more importantly, that girl Cleo had met at 360 never even called her back. Cleo's arm shot out, grabbing Maya and pulling her to the ground. "Duck." The girls dropped behind a shrub. Living on a campus full of athletes, the average student was accustomed to swerving out of the way of balls, pucks, javelins, and rock frisbees. The past few days had added one more thing for the girl to avoid, Cell phone cameras. Amateur paparazzo at 3 o'clock, Cleo explained. Maya peeked over the shrub in time to see the frustrated girl put away her phone and stamp off in the opposite direction. I don't get it. We weren't even doing anything. Maya, you're about to walk onto the football field where the two guys you've been linked to on the wall are practicing. And I'm me. Cleo was looking particularly Cleo that afternoon in an oversized vintage Debbie Harry t-shirt that revealed half her sports bra, jeans with skulls painted on the back pockets, and a pair of kick-ass boots. A shot of her in that outfit would give Grant Adams plenty to write about in his next blog post. Cleo had been trying to dig up all the dirt she could find on the guy, but it was useless. No one knew anything about him beyond his blog. All clear. Maya brushed the grass from her jeans as she got off the ground. Cleo picked a leaf out of her friend's hair. This is annoying. Down? Maya yelled through clenched teeth. They both dropped. It was becoming second nature. Beyond annoying, Cleo said. That thing on the wall was a week ago. Maya took out her phone. She was afraid to look, but she knew there would be an answer online. Nothing new on the wall. Thank heaven for small favors. Cleo took the phone from her friend, typing on the little keypad on the screen. Oh what? Grant Adams put some kind of bounty on my head, Cleo said as she stood. When she handed the phone back to Maya, the screen was blank. Maya wanted to look, but she knew Cleo would kill her if she did. Cleo. Cleo dropped to the ground again out of habit. No, Maya said. I mean, tell me what you are talking about. Cleo let out an exaggerated sigh as she got back up. Nothing big. He posted a photo contest. The person who gets a picture of me in the craziest outfit wins an online interview from Grant. What kind of prize is that? Only the best prize ever. Cleo continued walking toward the football field. He knows where I go to school. Every student in this place would kill for that kind of exposure. Not just the golfers. Maya still had the Esteban scarf she'd borrowed from Rini. She took it from around her neck and opened it up to its full size. Here, wrap yourself in this. Cleo held out a hand, but stopped herself before she took the scarf. No, I'm not going to let some stuffy old dude win. If I'm going to be me, I'm going to be me. Cleo took her own cell phone out of the pocket of her jeans and held the camera out at arm's length, lining her body up in the screen. Maya grabbed the phone. What are you doing? I'm giving Grant a good shot of me, she replied. Or maybe I should wait. I have much better things in my closet. I could probably put something together that gives him a heart attack. You can't play his game, Maya said. Why not? Well, for one thing, do you want him to leave your email address or phone number when you send the picture? Good points. Besides, what does it matter? I think he's got me pretty covered. Cleo tipped her head to the side as she spoke. Maya followed the tilt of Cleo's head to see a guy with a camera phone pointed at them. It didn't end there. About a half-dozen cell phones were aimed in their direction. Grant Adams' photo contest was bad enough, but the fact that their classmates would sell out one of their own for a little free publicity really upset Maya. Cleo was right. There was nothing they could do about it, short of wrapping Cleo in a blanket as she walked from class to class. That wasn't the answer to anything. Although Maya was tempted to drape that Esteban scarf over her own head so she didn't appear on any more blocks. Maya was surprised to see Renee waiting for them outside the football field. "It's about time you two got here," Renee said. "What took you so long?" "We had to stop and pose for a dozen photos on the way," Cleo replied. "And we didn't know you were waiting," Maya added. "What are you doing here?" "Cleo told me about the text," Renee said. "Sounded intriguing." Maya shot a glare at her friend. "Thanks, Cleo." Cleo smiled brightly. "No problem." Renee grabbed Maya's arm and pulled her toward the field. "Are we sitting in the spot reserved for girlfriends today?" "No," Maya said. That was the last thing she needed. She'd done that before, and once was enough. "No girlfriend spot. We're sitting in the bleachers." The very top of the bleachers. Behind a pillar, if possible. Renee shook her head. "You are no fun." "Not as fun as Cleo, apparently," Maya said as a few more camera clicks followed them to the stands. The word was out. Everyone wanted a shot of Cleo, which was just silly at this point. A couple hundred photos of Cleo in the same outfit weren't going to win anything. "Oh, shut up," Cleo said. Heads continued to turn as the three girls made their way up to the top of the bleachers. Maya wanted to credit the interest to Cleo, but she knew some of it was for her as well. No matter where she sat, Maya wasn't fooling anyone. They knew she was there to see one of the Reed brothers. They all wanted to know which one. Both brothers looked good. Travis was in control as quarterback, guiding his teammates down the field. He was a study of perfection and control. Maya had learned enough about football to hold her own in a conversation, and even she was blown away by how Travis managed his plays. Jake was the real surprise, though. His game was very un-Jake-like, and that was a good thing. The first time Maya came by to watch a practice, Jake incited a lawsuit with his aggressive play and a move that injured one of his classmates. That Jake wasn't on the field. Jake 2.0 played with far more control than she'd seen in him before. He looked more like his brother than ever. Maya didn't have a chance to see too much since the coach called the scrimmage to an end shortly after she arrived. Maya planned to stay on the bleachers and wait for Travis to come out of the locker room and tell her what he needed to say. By then, most of the spectators would be gone, taking their camera phones with them. Travis threw a major wrench into that plan when he came to the sideline and waved his arms at her like she was a million miles away. She only wished she were a million miles away at that moment. "I think Travis has seen you," Cleo said, "but I could be wrong." Maya reluctantly stood. If she ignored him, that would only make it worse. Cleo and Renee stood along with her. "Stop," Maya said. "Sit, stay." The girls did as they were told. Maya had enough of an audience. She didn't need her friends along when Travis said what he wanted to say to her. Heads turned again as she made the long walk down the bleachers. Her supposedly invisible seat in the back row meant she had even farther to walk while everyone stared. She could feel the eyes of the dozens of students following her every step. She focused on Travis' eyes instead. That and the fact that Jake's eyes had disappeared into the locker room without even a backward glance. "I'd give you a hug, but I'm kind of sweaty," Travis said once she was closer. I see that. Maya saw a lot of him in his tight muscle shirt. You got my text? Maya thought that was pretty obvious, unless he was hoping she'd stopped by to see him on a whim. Suddenly she felt bad about not doing that sooner. Yeah. Travis' eyes now looked uncertain. Something huge has happened. Huge good or huge bad? Huge awesome, Travis replied. I booked a guest spot on the Hype. The Hype? She asked. Or CNC? That Hype? Travis' lips broke into the winning grin that was so much like his dad's. The only difference was that Travis' smile didn't reach his eyes. He was happy, but worried. Yes, that Hype. Travis, that is awesome. Maya wrapped him in a congratulatory hug. His after-practice glow didn't matter. The Hype was one of the sports news channel's most popular shows. For an amateur, a high school student, to appear as a guest was the hugest of the huge. Which is why Maya was nervous that she couldn't feel him hugging her back. What is it? They're flying me to New York to shoot the segment. Okay, on Friday. Oh, the same day as the photo shoot for Esteban's sportswear line. That's trying to get the shoot moved, he quickly said. He's working every angle. If anyone can get it switched, it would be him. Maya couldn't help but notice that Nace wasn't working on getting Travis' appearance on the Hype moved, considering the Esteban had come first. And if he can't, Maya asked. I made a commitment to the Esteban campaign, Travis said. And to you. To me? I know how important this shoot is, he said. I don't want to risk messing it up for you. Money being tight and all. Was he only doing the shoot for Maya? Of course, an appearance on the Hype was more important to his career than some fashion shoot. College recruiters and NFL coaches watched the sports news channel. They didn't tend to be impressed by fashion ads when making their player selections. Considering how many of their classmates were willing to sell out Clio for an interview with a golf blogger, most of them would probably commit murder to appear on the Hype. Travis, she said, you have to go on the Hype. You can't miss that kind of opportunity for an ad campaign. I will in a second, he said, if you want me to. If you want me to? Would he really blow off the opportunity for her? That was nice, but how could he pat that on her? Just because Travis part out of the shoot didn't mean that it would be cancelled, or that Maya would be out as well. They were two different people, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they'd been hired as a couple, whether or not they actually were a couple at the time, or now even. They really did have to have that conversation at some point. If she stood in the way of Travis' opportunity for that press, they might never have the chance to be a couple again. Nels would see to that. He could make life very difficult for Maya if he felt she was standing in the way of his son's success. There really wasn't a decision to make when she thought about it. All she could do was go along and hope that everything worked out. Of course you should do it, she said. You'd be an idiot not to. And yet, in that moment, Maya was the one who felt like the fool. It didn't help that when she turned to the bleachers, she saw that the stands were still full of people who'd stuck around to watch the post-game show. Chapter 12. I'm on it. That was how Jordan answered the phone, non-wasting time with pleasantries. She cut right to the chase. I've already got a couple calls into the agency. Sit tight. I'll get back to you. And she was gone. That was the sum total of the conversation Maya had with Jordan 2 days ago. There was no hand-holding, no reassurances that Maya still had the job, no indications that there was any backup plan at all if one of them dropped out of the chute as Travis had. Maya hadn't heard anything from Jordan or Travis, and the shoot was the next day. At least, she hoped it was still the next day. She wanted to call Jordan back. She wanted to pester the agent until she heard something, but Maya had that unsigned agreement in front of her. She figured she didn't have any right to expect the agent to make her a priority if Maya couldn't even decide if she wanted Jordan to represent her. Here we go again, Cleo said from her computer. Maya was afraid to ask. Grant Adams? Yep. Did he find a winner for the worst outfit? Not yet, Cleo said. This is worse than a picture. He's going after me on something new. He's got a whole write-up here on how I've completely turned my back on my heritage. What? Maya was off her bed and leaning over Cleo's shoulder. Grant Adams really did a number on her this time. It was one thing to make fun of Cleo's clothes. She dressed like she didn't care what other people thought, so it was only natural that people felt it was their duty to tell her what they thought. But this messed with her family. The article went to great lengths to examine how Americanist Cleo had become, from her clothes to her friends to the fact that she didn't go by her real name, Lysan, anymore. The blog was filled with pictures of her on campus and out on the town doing things a typical teen would do with friends. None of it was scandalous until Grant Adams put his small-minded spin on every image. Suddenly, a picture of her eating a hot dog opened up a discourse on national pride. Even worse, the photos came from all over. Their classmates had been busy this week invading Cleo's privacy. Maya was going to have to talk to Travis about getting his father to make some kind of ban on cell phone photos around the school. No one should be put through this kind of cyberstalking. Maya expected Cleo to scream and throw things, promising revenge. It was much scarier than she got very quiet. It broke Maya's heart to see a teardrop from her friend's eye. Cleo didn't get sad. She got angry. Very angry. Maya rested a hand on Cleo's shoulder. Are you okay? No, Cleo said, but I'm going to do something about it. I just don't know what yet. Maya hated to leave Cleo, but there wasn't anything more she could do. They spent on an hour discussing ways to get back and Grant Adams, but came up with nothing. When the next from Travis came through telling Maya that he couldn't move the chute, Cleo insisted that Maya go talk to him and see what was up. I'm so sorry, Travis said the moment Maya walked into ground rules, the coffee shop hallway between the football fields and the dorms. Travis had slipped out of practice to talk to her, which was uncharacteristic of him. He had to meet somewhere he could get back before he was missed. He handed her an iced mocha latte with extra whipped cream and chocolate sauce. It had to be over 500 calories. Maya took the excessive sugar as an added apology. Thanks, she said, and it's okay. It wasn't completely okay, though. What would happen with the shoot? Did they still want her? How was she supposed to do this without Travis? Maya, you don't have to be so understanding, Travis said. You have every right to be upset with me for bailing on you. Maya was upset, but not with Travis. She was worried about what it meant for her. You made a business decision. It's the kind of thing we're going to have to do. I can take it personally. I don't deserve a friend like you. Maya smiled. Well, I won't argue with that. They later broke the tension until they both homed in on that word, friend. They still hadn't discussed what Travis had whispered at the old well. Travis looked like he was about to bring it up just as Maya's phone rang. She quickly checked the screen and saw a now familiar number. "It's Jordan," she said. "I'm sorry, I have to take this." Maya left her latte on the table and went outside before answering the call. She didn't want everyone in the coffee shop to eavesdrop on her conversation. She especially didn't want to make Travis listen to it. If Jordan had bad news, Maya didn't have the acting chops to pretend everything was fine in front of Travis. Maya answered the phone as she walked through the patio. She'd hoped for a more secluded spot, but she had to get the call before it rolled over to voicemail. "Hello? You're still in for now?" Jordan said by way of greeting. Maya froze in place on the patio. That didn't sound good. "For now? They want to test you with some more guys," Jordan said. "See if you can recreate that spark. And if I can't? Then they'll have to go with someone else." Jordan wasn't one to sugarcoat things. Maya appreciated that, but she didn't entirely like it. There was nothing wrong with a little bit of coddling. But that was a discussion for another time. The ad agency people wanted her back at their offices immediately. Flashbacks of Maya's movie audition invaded her thoughts as the elevator doors opened to the lobby of the Creative Core. Those memories were joined by her more recent recollections of her audition for the ad campaign. Could she find chemistry with a total stranger? There was no waiting this time. Steven bolted from the audition room moments after she stepped out of the elevator. Either they had cameras trained on the lobby or, more likely, the receptionist hit the intercom the moment Maya was inside. "Maya, thank you so much for coming." He shook her hand, then kept holding it as he guided her through the lobby. His frantic manner didn't help calm Maya's nerves, and as he walked her past a half-dozen guys of various sizes and shapes toward the audition room. The one thing the guys had in common was that they were all hot, incredibly hot. "I'm happy to be here," she said, as if she had a choice. Jordan made the situation clear. They could still go with someone else. Steven escorted her into the room where the same executives sat in the same spots they had when she'd been there a week earlier. It was like they had assigned seating. "Maya, thank you so much for coming back in," the executive in the middle said. "Sorry to make you go through this process again, but we need to be sure the chemistry is right before we commit. This is going to be a major campaign." "No, I totally understand," Maya said. She especially understood that she wasn't a lock for the campaign. These new guys may have been coming in to test with her, but she was going to have to impress her critics all over again. "Let's get started," the chief executive said. "Sounds good," Maya agreed with a big smile to show them she was ready for anything. Steven brought in the first guy. Maya didn't want to make assumptions, but she guessed he played basketball because of his size. Maya was pretty tall herself, but this guy dwarfed her by at least a foot. Before he even reached her, she knew it wasn't going to work, but she kept her smile and gave it her best attempt. She was about to introduce herself when Steven started giving direction. "Can you just wrap an arm around her, real quick?" "Sure." The guy did what he was told. Maya's head only came up to his chest. Steven didn't even raise his camera. He looked over a shoulder, The executive in the middle seat gave a slight shake of his head, and the guy was excused before Maya had the chance to say hello. The next guy was more Maya's height, and she did have a chance to introduce herself as they took some pictures together. His name was Jasper, and he had exactly the kind of smolder Steven asked for. Unfortunately, every time he smoldered in Maya's direction, she broke out in giggles. "I'm so sorry," she said for the fifth time. What he was doing looked great, but it just felt so fake. To Maya, there was nothing behind his eyes, but she didn't hear any of the executives make that comment like they had with Travis. "Okay, thanks," Steven said, and the guys rotated again. Maya quickly went through the half-dozen guys, feeling less and less confident with each one. It was not going well at all. The last guy, Grayson, was so good that Maya felt like she was losing the job with each new pose. She came off like a complete amateur next to him, which she was. They'd said they wanted amateurs for the shoot, but this guy knew his way around the camera. He looked familiar too. Maybe she'd seen him around school. "It's okay, Maya," Grayson whispered into her ear as he held her from behind. "Just relax your body. Let me hold you up. I promise I'll keep you in a position that maximizes your look." Maya tried to relax and let him take control, but she didn't understand how this amateur knew what kind of control to take, or how to maximize her look. She couldn't imagine many of her classmates using that phrase. Suddenly Maya realized why Grayson looked so familiar. As they shifted poses to a face-to-face embrace, Maya struck up a whispered conversation. "Grayson, are you the tactics guy?" Grayson's smile brightened. "You recognized me, huh? I got a lot of work out of that campaign. Get stopped on the street a lot, too." "It's good work," Maya said as she struggled to find a comfortable pose. Grayson wasn't an athlete. He was the guy in the Tactics body spray ads. He was practically famous for that ad campaign. They'd paired Maya with professionals. No wonder she felt like even more of an amateur than she had before. Steven put down his camera. "Okay, Grayson, thanks. We're done." He looked down at his cell phone when whispered something to the executives. Maya said goodbye to Grayson and hung around to see what they wanted next from her. It wasn't much. "Thank you as well, Maya," the head executive said as Steven hurried out of the room. She wondered if he was running after Grayson to tell him he'd booked the job. "Happy to do it," Maya said. She wasn't sure if she'd already said that back when they started. She'd been posing for over an hour, and her mind was filled with awkward body positions and inappropriate laughter. She had managed to screw this audition up without any help from Nicole King. "We'll let your agent know once we've decided on the direction we plan to take," he said. Maya felt like she should say something more, maybe offer to take modeling classes if there was such a thing, but she didn't want to look like she was begging. The lobby was empty except for the receptionist. It sounded like she was on a personal call. She was talking about her plans for the weekend and the model she'd just made a date with. Maya wondered if she meant Grayson. The woman looked up at Maya questioningly, although she didn't stop talking on the phone. Maya mouthed, "Is Steven around? I wanted to thank him." The receptionist jerked her head to the right, which Maya took as the general direction his desk was in. Growing up the daughter of a gardener, Maya knew that thanking the little people was the best way to be remembered by the bigwigs. Steven was easy to find. He had a small outer office with a big glass window at the edge of a cubicle farm. Maya was about to enter when she saw a dark-haired girl in his guest chair. Nicole. Maya hid behind a giant potted fern by the door as she listened. "They should be wrapping up in a minute," he said I'm sure Mr. Williams would love to meet you. Thanks, Nicole said. I'm so sorry to just show up like this, but I heard a rumor that you were looking for someone and, well, Esteban and I do have a history. He designed the dress I wore to prom last year. Actually, I did know that, Steven said. So the pictures in US Weekly, the only reason we didn't request you in the first place was they were looking for someone less famous and unknown, but I think that might be changing. Well, if you want a nobody, you should definitely go with Maya Hart, Nicole said. But if you're looking for someone who comes with a little something extra, well... She let the words trail off to allow him to fill in the blanks. Maya wanted to fill in some blanks as well. I'll go see what's keeping them, he said. Maya dropped back farther behind the fern as Steven passed her. She considered slipping out quietly, but she wanted Nicole to know that she was on to her this time. Hello, Nicole. Maya, so nice to see you. If Nicole was surprised that she'd been caught, she didn't show it, trying to take another job from me. Oh, Maya, she said, I don't take things. People just give them to me when they see what I have to offer. Maya noticed that Nicole was holding her arm. How's the wrist? Nicole smiled with clenched teeth. Fine. Glad to hear it, Maya said. Guess I'll see you back at school. Yes, Nicole said, you will. Maya wasn't sure what she'd accomplished with that little exchange, but it felt good to confirm that she knew something Nicole didn't want her to know. Not that it mattered. Maya wasn't going to do anything about it, and even if she did, it wouldn't affect the ad campaign. Nicole caught those poses in her sleep, whether her wrist was injured or not. Maya had done all that she could about the campaign. Now she just had to wait for Jordan to call, assuming that Jordan was still on her side. Chapter 13. Maya read the agreement Jordan had sent over. It was probably the 20th time she'd read the document and she still couldn't decide what to do about it. She'd gone over the agreement with Travis. She'd asked one of her coaches to look at it. She even sent a copy to her dad, even though he was just as lost as she was when it came to the legacy. Whoever Maya signed with would have major control over her career and her life. She so wasn't ready for this kind of decision. It was getting late, but Maya couldn't go to bed without knowing if she had class in the morning or a photo shoot. After the first audition, Jordan called with the news by the time she'd gotten back to her dorm. But this time nothing. Jordan hadn't returned any of her calls. It was not good a sign. Suddenly Maya's cell phone hovered in front of her eyes. Call her, Cleo said, shaking the phone. Maya pushed it away. I've called her multiple times. Cleo pushed the phone back. Call her again. You said yourself this is a trial period. She stopped trying. You don't have to look at that contract anymore. She picked Nicole over you. What more is there to think about? You're right. Maya took the phone from Cleo and tapped Jordan's name. If she didn't answer, Maya would leave a message thanking the agent for her time, but telling her she was taking her business someplace else. She started rehearsing the voicemail in her head as the phone rang. Sorry I've been out of touch lately, but I've been working my magic to keep you on the campaign. Maya's eyes went wide, along with Cleo's. Jordan's voice was loud enough that her side of the conversation filled the small dorm room even without speakerphone. I still have the job? Maya asked. The short speech she'd prepared for Jordan's voicemail went right out of her head. You've still got the job, Jordan confirmed. It was touch and go there for a bit. They considered going the professional model route. You mean the Nicole King route? Cleo added. What was that? Jordan asked. Apparently Cleo's voice carried as well. Maya shot Cleo a warning glare. Nothing. Maya, is there something I should know? Maya sighed. I saw Nicole at the agency. I know you sent her. Sent Nicole? Jordan said. Maya, I did not send Nicole anywhere. If she was there, she did that on her own, which is something she does quite often. I'm sorry if you got caught up in it, but it's nothing to concern yourself with. The words were apologetic, but Jordan's voice was quite matter-of-fact, as if this kind of thing happened and Maya should just get over it. After all, as Jordan had said, this is business, not high school. Maya was still suspicious. How did she even find out about it? Jordan laughed. Maya, everybody knows about it. You can't keep a secret in this industry. None of that matters because you're back in the campaign. We found a perfect replacement for Travis with a fresh face and equally recognizable name. Maya knew exactly where this conversation was going. Jordan confirmed her suspicions with one little word. Jake. The shade of the large umbrella failed to keep Maya cool. It was an unseasonable warm day, which for Florida meant extremely hot and humid. Maya would have been fine if she were just wearing Esteban's purple and grey short-sleeve bodysuit and matching canvas shorts. The fabrics were light and breathable, but the photo shoot was outdoors, and everyone was afraid that someone might sneak a picture of the clothes and leak it to the press. Maya and Jake had to wear long overcoats to cover up while they waited for the production to finish prepping. Even though the NFL stadium that provided the setting was on complete lockdown, it didn't mean anything to the hyper-security conscious ad agency. Thankfully, Steven had sent over some funds to keep Maya from sweating off her professionally applied makeup. Jake had his own umbrella to shade less than 10 feet away, but it might as well have been a million miles. He'd barely looked at her since he arrived. So much for Renee's crazy suggestion that he only agreed to shoot to the ad because he wanted to be closer to Maya. We'll be ready in 5, Steven told her. It was the 6th time he'd given her a 5-minute warning. She didn't bother taking off the coat as she had the first 2 times. She'd just have to put it back on again with the next delay. No, the photographer Charles Zinn yelled. The sun is in the wrong position. This is not going to work at all. Maya picked out from under the umbrella. She didn't know what position he wanted the sun to be in. It shined down on the field with maximum efficiency. There was hardly a shadow for the rest of the crew to hide in to keep cool. The photographer had complained about the sun in the sky, the coloring of the astroturf beneath their feet, and everything in between. Maya's phone buzzed in the pocket on her overcoat. Travis had sent her a message. Break a leg, preferably Jake's. Maya wrote back, lol, you too. It was nice to know she was on his mind even though he had a bunch of other things to think about. Not only was his appearance on the Hype scheduled for the same day as the shoot, but it was at the same time too. He went on in a half hour. Maya wasn't even sure she'd be shooting by then. There was no way she'd be able to catch it, but that's what DVRs were for. Maya spent the next few minutes texting with Travis before he had to go to set. By the time she was done, she got another 5-minute warning from Stephen. You keep saying that, Maya said lightly. This time I actually believe it, he replied. Esteban has arrived. Maya didn't know how she'd missed him. The famous clothing designer had come onto the field in a pink and white zebra-striped suit and an entourage of people dressed entirely in black. They sat under a red sequined tent the photographer had spent the first half-hour of the day screaming about because of the light reflection. The production assistant had moved the tent back to the 50-yard line, but now Esteban's people were having a fit about being so far from the action in the end zone. These next 5 minutes were probably going to take a while, no matter what Steven said. Everyone on the crew tended to Esteban and the photographer, leaving Maya and Jake all alone on the side of the field. It finally got to the point of beyond awkward that they were sitting right next to each other without speaking. Maya figured it was time to be the bigger person. She got up from her folding chair and slipped under Jake's umbrella. "Travis is about to go on," she said. "I know," Jake said without looking at her. At this point Maya had had enough. "Okay, seriously, Jake, what is this about?" He finally looked at her, genuinely confused. What about? You said you didn't want to be together anymore. I'm giving you your space. Space is one thing, she said. Totally ignoring me is another. Jake stood. You may have noticed that I'm not good at doing things halfway. I'm either all in or all out. You didn't want me in, so I'm out. Obviously, some people don't have that problem. This isn't about Travis, she said. I never said it was. I was talking about you. We're ready to go, Steven jumped in. Better move fast before the next major cataclysm occurs, like someone finds out there's no sushi on the snack table. Jake threw off his overcoat and took the field, leaving Maya behind. How she'd get through this shoot with someone who obviously hated her was a mystery. The wardrobe changed in. The shoot was just as awkward as it had been when they started. The shots in the end zone were good as long as Maya and Jake didn't have to look at each other. The ones in the bleachers quickly became single poses since Zin, the photographer, claimed he was getting nothing from his subjects when they were together. The crew had moved onto the press box for the final setup of the day. On the bright side, the press box was shaded and air-conditioned. Unfortunately, this part of the plan called for the most intimate poses of the shoot. If the earlier scenes were an indication, this would not go well. Maya wore the signature design for the line. Esteban had created a dress that would look good on the court and with a few minor alterations out on the town. It was the most comfortable outfit Maya had ever been in. She couldn't imagine an occasion where she would ever go from the court to a club in the same clothing, but sometimes fashion was more about form than function. This was one of those times. "I get to take this home with me, right?" Maya joked to Steven. "No," he replied, stern-faced. "If that dress gets out, you'd be killed. I'd be fired, and Esteban would probably need to be institutionalized." Maya shrank back. "I was kidding." Steven remained straight-faced. "I wasn't." Something behind Maya distracted Steven. He was no longer looking at her. She turned to see what he was gawking at, and her own jaw dropped. Jake wore a brown linen sport jacket over a white, skin-tight tank top made from some kind of material that shimmered without too much shine. His pants hugged the muscles of his legs, but still gave him room to move. It was sporty, yet casually professional at the same time. Maya could see him on the sidelines or in the boardroom. Jake looked so mature in the outfit that she could easily imagine him taking over the academy one day, even though she knew it would never happen. Zin pulled Maya and Jake together. "We've sold the sport, now it's time to sell the passion. You two up on the desk." "What?" Maya asked. "The desk?" Jake said. "She's a pretty girl," the photographer said in the most condescending way he could. "I'm sure you can figure out what to do, Reed." "My name is Jake," he replied. "Reed is my dad." Maya could have sworn she heard him say "and my brother" under his breath. It featured that the Reed boys would want to make their names for themselves, and it was just like Jake to be the one to correct people about it while Travis silently let others call him what they wanted. Zin patted his hand like he was calling for a pair of puppies to jump up on the table. "On the desk, please." Maya didn't exactly know what he was going for with the shoot, but the atmosphere suddenly felt much less sporting. On the field and in the stands, it posed them in action shots that accentuated the clothes while focusing on sports. This was more personal and, in Maya's mind, kind of tacky. Since she didn't want to cause a problem, she started to climb onto the table. "No," Zin said. "Jake on the table. I want Maya to be the aggressor." Jake smiled for the first time all day. "This is going to be fun." Maya gave him a swat on the arm. "Dream on." Jake slid onto the desk and waited for further instruction. His smile had turned to a smirk that Maya alternately wanted to smack off his face or kiss. Where did that come from? They both looked at the photographer. Zin raised an eyebrow. "Do you really need me to tell you what to do?" Jake shrugged and leaned back on the table next to the glass window overlooking the field. He stayed up on his elbows so Maya wouldn't have to bend so far to reach him. From where Maya stood, she could tell that the image of them together beside the glass with the field below them was going to be powerful. So long as she didn't screw it up. Maya leaned over Jake with her body closer to his than she'd been in a while. This time, he couldn't ignore her, he couldn't look away. Maya was semi-aware of the camera clicking in the background, but it was the last thing on her mind. All she could think of was Jake. She breathed in the familiar sandalwood scent of his cologne, felt his heart beat through his muscular chest. "Lose the jacket, Jake," Zin whispered. Jake leaned forward, starting to do what he was told, but Maya stopped him. She grabbed the jacket material in her hand and heard an audible gasp from Esteban. It didn't matter if the designer was upset that she crinkled the fabric. The absolute stillness from the rest of the room told her it worked. Maya pulled the jacket off Jake. He went along, moving as she directed him, leaving her in control. She dropped the jacket to the floor, eliciting another gasp from the designer as it crumpled to the ground. Maya kicked it out of the frame as she lifted a leg to the table. The material of the skirt moved with her body, protecting her modesty as her moves became almost completely indecent in front of a room full of strangers. All she saw was Jake. All he saw was Maya. So many sense memories filled her from their brief relationship, it was like they were transported back in time. They weren't in the press box of a football stadium, they were on the couch in his place the first time they'd kissed. Being near Jake, so close to him, it all came back. "Perfect," the photographer whispered. Their faces were inches apart. There was only one thing left, one thing Maya knew she couldn't do, one thing she couldn't ignore. She leaned in closer, her lips brushed against his. The scene on the couch playing in her mind jump cut to another image, Nicole in Jake's t-shirt, Jake drunk and in bed. The afternoon Maya's heart had been broken. Maya's foot dropped to the floor of the press box as she broke away from Jake. The image was so jarring that she nearly lost control. "I'm sorry," she said with tears fighting to escape. "I'm sorry." Maya fled the room, leaving Jake and everyone else behind.